Coming down
Does he have it?
Medeiros is going to get it. Medeiros
They're going to touch it! They haven't got it!
He's on the outside line though, going into the fastest corner on the circuit. Surely this can't work.
Dominic Ligner has got a sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's come back into play. Exactly, Miller's still such up. He's not on second and change. All of a sudden, Miller's back in play.
Can Barry do it? Big Barry's going to do it! Big Barry!
It's a warm hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sim Racing for Simpletons Formula 3 Championship. Last time out, we took to the Styrian Mountains at the Red Bull Ring, and what a display of action that we had over the course of that evening. It was one to remember, and while tonight has some peculiar circumstances, some technical difficulties set us back on Saturday, but we are here on the Monday to watch the replay of the race, to deliver you the action and make sure we can actually indulge into what happened on that fateful evening here at the Donington Park Racing Circuit. A brilliant circuit when it comes to UK club racing, the Craner curves, the late braking zones into the Melbourne and Goddard's hairpin. It is a brilliant circuit and one that I am looking forward to seeing these Formula 3 machines take to. My name, of course, is Zach Sweeney. I'm joined in the booth by Dean Biggles once more. And well, Dean, I again, looking at the calendar going into today, Donington was one that I was really looking forward to. It's one that I mentioned last week as like a standout one because I love Donington. And I think the combination with Donington and Formula 3s, surely it's going to be a good one.
It is, and of course, you wouldn't be biased at all, would you? Because the fact that it's in England.
Oh, no, just a little bit,
just a little bit. Yeah, no, it's an absolutely fantastic track, and we're expecting to see these fantastic gladiators throw their cars around here as quickly as possible. Hopefully, delivering themselves the best results as possible. Practice session at the moment should be over in just a few minutes, and then they'll get ready for their qualifying session, and then, of course, after qualifying session will be the race. What do you fancy so much about this track? Is it the
I don't know, it's just
the
fun.
huge hairpin, of course?
I mean, well, just looking at it, it's just 4 kilometers of goodness. It's God's greatest creation. But in all fairness, as well, that's reverse. The way Donington is, you know, it's wide, it's open, but it's also going to punish quite a few mistakes. You know, just the fact that there isn't a lot of runoff at all. The chicane at the back end of the back straight as well is a very, very difficult sequence of corners. The left and the right, very easy to mess up, very easy to get an off track. And then obviously you've got the sweepers through Redgate, Hollywood, down the Craner curves, the old hairpin, McLean's, Coppice. Just that run, it flows so nicely, especially when it comes to high downforce cars like these Formula 3s. And then once you get through that, you've then got the longish back straight towards the chicane, then into the Melbourne hairpin, then into Goddard's. 2 pretty heavy braking zones and 2 zones of the circuit where you can run side by side with your rivals. And what we saw last time out of the Rebel Ring as well, these guys know their stuff. They know how to run closely. They know how to give each other the race and respect. And yeah, well, obviously you did the whole thing backwards just for the lols. Absolutely. Would be fun. They should do that. Just do a whole race in reverse, because it's just banter in it.
Why not? Absolutely, why not?
No reason why not to.
Qualifying session will be starting, my friend, so we should get ready to roll.
Yeah, well, the 4-lap qualifying format of it, they get about 10 minutes to do that lap. And in terms of how important qualifying is, obviously Donington does allow itself to be quite a good overtaking circuit. We saw that in the British Formula 4, last weekend with them taking to their first round of the season. And we saw some brilliant racing over the course of that weekend. It is a circuit that in the lower Formula cars, you can run side by side. It's a fast circuit, and these cars do have a lot of downforce, but the corners are displayed in such a way that you can, they are braking zones. They're not just downshifts and flicks to the right sort of thing. You do have to brake. There is an element of skill. And well, it would be a different story if iRacing finally added rain, so we could actually replicate that British Formula 4 weekend. But hey ho, we've got it in the dry. That's besides the point. But yeah, I think in terms of how important qualifying is, it should be a fairly 50-50 one. It's going to be one of those ones where it helps to qualify well, but it's not necessarily going to be the be all and end all.
I'm going to find out very, very soon. We'll probably go, Zachary, if you want to get on board soon with Brian when he does start his flying lap. He's just on the out lap as his exit the pit road. And you can tell us that fantastic Zach's onboard guide.
Well, I'll do my best. Again,
Brian's concentration.
He is. Look at him, stone. He's in on it. Past Brian Long is just look at that. You've never seen a more concentrated face, and he's got a tinted visor, but that's besides the point. He works his way through the chicane, and this is into the final couple of corners. The downhill braking zone into Goddard's. It's a slight crest, slight blind going in, but you do have to get down to first gear. It is quite a tight corner, but it is a long hairpin. You saw him there sort of take a double apex of sorts, clip the curb once, run a bit wide, clip the curb a second time, which does allow you to actually run side by side quite well. And then the Goddard's hairpin, I have to say, it is my least favourite corner on the circuit, purely because you can't see it at all. You can't see the braking zone for it, you can't see the turning in point for it, you can't see the apex. It is just a tricky one. Redgate, though, look at this. Flick to the right, put his foot to the floor, and then hope. This is where everything, it is just about sheer commitment through the Craner curves, dipping your way down the up and down undulation, mostly downhill though, of course, but like a roller coaster, into the old hairpin. Got to brake in a straight line as possible, but carry that momentum through. Fifth gear corner, it is very quick. Through the left, rising up the hill, bit of a tight left, but easily flat out. It's all about keeping it as tight to the left as possible as you run your way through McLean's. Take a later turn-in point to hit a later apex, so then rise up the hill now in towards Coppice. Probably the most important corner on the circuit, because the way you approach this one, the tightness you run, the speed you run through, all has that knock-on effect as you run your way down this back straight in towards the chicane. It's quite a high-speed chicane, but it is quite tight if it catches you out. So you've got to hit it once, hit it twice, use as much of the curb as possible, use the full extent of the track, and hope that you don't pick up an off-track. Now into the final sector of the circuit, as we say, braking pretty much as the track dips away from you. So through the right, and then the late apex drive to get you uphill. It is a slight uphill inclination into the final corner of Goddard's, and that is exactly what Brian Long is doing, just to get his foot to the floor as early as possible and maximise his momentum. Now at the final corner, use the full extent of the circuit, and that is a lap of Donington. It was a pretty decent lap, it must be said, a 1:22.8. Again, that's not being compared to anything just yet. We'll wait for the past selves of the drivers to sort of see if that's a good benchmark, but no, it seemed like a tidy lap.
It might have yes, it did. Unfortunately, I think we are only going to be able to get Brian's qualifying session, because it is based off a reach, just as exactly was mentioned out there in the chat there. I just realized, I was just trying to get what you were saying out there about how we don't have everybody's qualifying, because I only see one car on track at the moment, and it'll only be Brian's. So that's going to be a little bit unfortunate because of the fact that yeah, just technical issues, nothing that could be held about.
We can't even see anyone else on the live timing either.
No, you won't be able to see anybody else on the live timing. I guess it's just the way it works out there for the replay file. Once again, apologies about that. This thing called electricity difficulties for the live race, that I could not be able to get this done. Trust me, I had a generator and that thing ran out of gas, and I could not get any more gas because the gas pumps don't work with electric. So that was just a bit of a nightmare that happened, but thankfully we still have that replay file, so we'll have to probably most likely just skip over to the race at the moment, and perhaps Zach, you could find out what happened for the qualifying results. Maybe I could see if I could show it up on the screen, if it will show everybody's qualifying results.
We're in the dark here a little bit, aren't we? We're a little bit. This is unknown for us. We do
have the qualifying results. There we go. So we could have to spoiler alert, but here it is. We can't show anybody else anyway. So Zach.
Yeah, well, at the end of that very enthralling qualifying session, of which we saw one lap, it was eventually Michael Brooks that took the pole position time, just the 10th clear of Carson Keane, who will join him on the front row. Daniel Whitfield, who we now have the correct name for, Modelese Kiko just in behind to round off row 2. Brian Long, it turned out to be a decent lap for him as he rounds off the top 5, and Shane Larson will keep him company on row 3. Ian Rude and Seth MacFarlane 7 and 8. Lucas Finco and Ian Patience there, rounding off the top 10. Dominic Angelico in P11 with Boyd Payne keeping him company as they dart their way into turn number 1. Kyle Matheson, Yoel Dutton and Nicholas Curto, your 15-strong field here today. It is quite tight between Michael Brooks and Carson Keane, only a 10th separating them. A little bit back, though, to Daniel Whitfield and Kiko, who are just over half a second off the pole time of Michael Brooks. But what is being told for what could be a fantastic race we've got in store, you know, you've got two drivers that once again stand out, similar to what we had last week, in all fairness.
Yeah, you're back exactly right at that one. Sorry, just for skipping it forward a little bit here at the moment, just trying to get it ready so we can go straight over to the race, which we will have all the gladiators battling it out. Apparently there were some fantastic battles too, so I'm really looking forward to that. Once again, Zach and I are 100% not aware of what's going on. We're even not aware that we could show all the drivers there for the qualifying session, but we don't know the race results. So this is going to be just as exciting as if we're watching it live. Yes. Exactly.
Like Endgame all over again. Don't want to spoil it. So any drivers in the chat, I know a couple of them are. I think we've got Brian and Kiko, obviously. Madinka, I don't know who you are, but it seems that you know, so shush. Because we want to keep this as exciting as possible. We don't want to have the monotone, oh, we've got to hype it up even though we know what's going to happen. Because that's not fun. We want the passion. We want to bring the passion. Yeah. We want to see this as if it's live so that it's the best possible show for you guys, which I'm hoping that you guys did actually put a good show on for us, because, well, we're sort of stuck in the deep end now. We can't just call it quits just because it's a boring race. We just got to go for it now. We've got to send it, which it won't be a boring race. And do you know why that is, Dean?
Because
It's Donington.
Oh, so what about Silverstone? What about Brands Hats?
Oh yeah, they're all good circuits too.
Yeah,
again,
but
they're great. I'm just saying, the UK, you've got Snetterton, you've got Brands Hatch, you've got Silverstone, Knockhill, Alton Park, Cadwell, Croft, Thruxton. Anyone else? I'm just trying to think. They're the main ones that I can think of off the top of my head. But yeah, we just do it better.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
but nothing's better than Bathurst, my friend. Sorry. You can have all these tracks you like, but you're not going all the way up and down a mountain with the elevation changes. Not even Spa has anything on that.
I mean, Lewis McGlade would agree with you. He likes a bit of Bathurst. Personally, I love the challenge of Bathurst and, how prestigious it is and, the fact that you're literally climbing up a mountain. But the racing that you usually get, I don't know. It's a bit iffy. Usually you're sort of relying on someone to make a mistake. You can't really make many moves unless you do it through the chase and into the final chicane. So I don't know. I like Bathurst, don't get me wrong. But I just think that for like a hot lap, it's like Monaco. It's a great track when you're hot lapping, but not necessarily for a race. I don't know. I feel like I've just offended you and you've got a gun to my head now. But either way, there we go. The grid back up onto your screen. Michael Brooks, Carson Keane, as we say, the front row. Whitfield and Kiko just in behind. And along your top 5, Larson, Ian Rood, Seth MacFarlane, Lucas Finco, and Ian Patience, your top 10. And that how they're going to rack up going into Redgate. What are we thinking in terms of that run into turn number 1? Obviously, it is a rolling start. They're not having to build up speed on that short run. They have already got the momentum. What could be the challenge going into Redgate? Are we going to see any major moves?
You got to go for it. You got to go for it early. Yeah, I'd say so, yes. Whether that'll keep it clean through there will be another one. I'd say so. It's got them on my notes here at the moment. I can't be using my race notes. I've torn them all up because we don't know what's going on.
It's true. We can't. We just can't spoil it. It's just not fair for the beautiful people at home. I mean, to be fair, half the people watching, probably exclusively the people watching, already know what's going to happen. They're just sat there eagerly waiting for their fantastic move around the outside and trying desperately not to type into the YouTube chat, watch out on lap 14 when I send the move to the outside of the Crane Curves. That's what they're here for. But hopefully we can do it some justice and hopefully they're going to do us justice because they've hyped this race up a lot. And so have I because I love Donington Park. So fingers crossed it is actually going to be a decent race. We'll see. Obviously, with the pit stop along the way as well, that could also play into the limelight in of itself. But I don't know. We're in for a good race, I'm sure. Absolutely. And,
I can't how many times you say Donington Park.
Donington Park, yeah. Donington Park.
Yeah.
I mean, it's where we are.
I think I got it down at about 6 right now. I'll keep note of that.
Well, I mean, I could call it Donnie. Don.
Does she have a nickname? This track?
Donnie. You just say Donnie, yeah.
Auntie Donnie? Something like that? Just Donnie.
Just Donnie.
All right, you can hear the cars revving up. So hopefully they will start. Gentlemen, start your engines. They used to say that back in the day, didn't they? They don't do that now.
Indy 500, didn't it? They used to.
I believe so.
Yeah,
no, that's back when they had to actually fire up their engines. Now, of course, they're already fired up in pit road, isn't it? They don't have the starters anymore. The engine start buttons.
That's because everything's so complicated and the starter motor just simply doesn't do it. Like on a road car, you've got the solenoid, pushes the pinion into place, and it spins the flywheel really quickly. With a Formula 1 car, you can't really do that because the engine's quite substantial and it's going to take a little bit more than that. So you have to do a whole process. I think someone has to sit there with the computer first, then start it up, then do the whole thing. Regardless of which, this isn't Formula 1. This is the Sim Racing for Simpletons. It's round number 2 of their Formula 3 season. We're here at Donington Park, and the race is about to get itself underway for the second time, technically. Michael Brooks and Carson Keane, your front row with Whitfield and Kiko just in behind. Round number 2 of the Sim Racing for Simpletons Formula 3 Championship is underway, and already side by side between the top 2, you can see Carson Keane trying to sail his way to the outside. He's very low on the brakes, and Michael Brooks is trying to keep him honest. There's Daniel Whitfield as well, trying to get his foot round, spinning round though. Unfortunately, I think it's Brian Long. He's tumbling his way down the order, but side by side for the race team, Michael Brooks and Carson Keane. Keane, very keen to go for the move, and he's trying to look his way to the inside of the old hairpin. He's going to do exactly that. Is he going to have the advantage? And unfortunately the answer to that question is no. So Michael Brooks leads from Carson Keane. Daniel Whitfield your top 3 with Rood a little bit far back, 1.5 seconds off the top 3. So already we're starting to see a bit of a breakaway and already quite a bit of a mistake from Long.
Oh, there's a little bit of a lock up there as well. We won't be able to show anybody the replays here this evening, so all the action was live. If you see somebody spinning off there, I'll try to capture it, but just check the timing tower to see if they drop down like a stone or not. There was Kyle and Brian Long and Nicholas Kuro. They all had a little bit of a moment at the first corner. But here's a bit of a challenge once again. Ian Wood for the wrong stuff up against Daniel. There it was for a second. That's just disappeared. But the top 3 are very, very close. Further back in the field, I think there was a switcheroo here. Maybe just set. There's Boyd Payne there and Joel, the Dutchman. Classic overtaking around that corner. Somebody's in the pit road already. Yes, that's probably damage there from Kyle Matheson. A bit of a puff of a lockup. There's a classic McLaren livery right there for the number 27 machine.
And an Aston Martin one as well. I can see the Aramco signage is side by side. Here we go. Here's a move between Kiko and Shane Larson. Unfortunately, Kiko unable to make the move and having to tuck back into the slipstream as once again they have pretty much forced to run single file through Hollywood and down the Craner curves because there's not really any way through unless you have a bit of a look like that. There's one from Larson. Beautiful move, that must be said. Just waited for his opportunity, looked and licked the stamp and then sent the move. And Kiko is trying to pounce on that opportunity as well, tries to get the up and under going into McLean's, but no way through. But Larson, that was quite decisive, but he stuck with his guts and well, it paid off for him. He's up into the top 5.
Great job. Great move. Sees an opportunity when Ken sees one, but Steph has gone around. Oh, he has gone around completely, but he has gone off the track there. So Seth MacFarlane, unfortunately, will drop down. Now, it's about this position at the moment because those other drivers are, well, Boyd's a little bit further down the road. There's Boyd now. He won't get past Boyd. Boyd will get past back there. And then I don't think he'll have any threat there from Kyle, who's just gone and visit. In fact, I think Kyle's stayed in the pit road for now. Action already. And it's only lap 1. Well, lap 2 now.
Yeah, well, we're running off lap 2 in just a moment. There is, I think it's Lucas Finco with the Aston Martin livery. Of course it is, just in front. Here we go. This is quite close. Obviously, the top 3 are breaking away a little bit, or the top 2 now, as Ian Rood has dropped off about 3.6 seconds. I think it may be a mistake from the Canadian. I've seen him now back into the clutches of Shane Larson, who is looking very, very quick, it must be said. His last lap was quicker than everyone bar the top 2, and even that, it was only a little bit slower than Carson Keane, and beyond that, only a little bit slower than Michael Brooks as well. So the American of Shane Larson, look at the closing speed he's got. Defensive goes Rude into McLean's, but the gap opens up on the inside, and Shane Larson's going to fill it inside line as they run their way uphill through the right hand. A bit of a twitch on the rear end as he works his way past. But Shane Larson, he's bringing the fire here today in Donington.
Absolutely. Further back as well too. Is that Dan looking to do the similar thing there on Kiko? I think it was. Dan Whitefield.
Yeah, I mean, Kiko is sort of using, I think, Larson as a battering ram of sorts. We saw Kiko try to do it, I think, on Whitfield not too long ago, but yeah, he's just trying to sort of see where the gaps open up, and usually Shane Larson doesn't think twice about it. He sees the gap and he sends the move, which is fair enough, you know, in some pretty unorthodox places as well, trying to go to the outside of the final part of the Craner curves, then to the inside of the old hairpin, and then into McLean's, and quite a late move as well. The track obviously bends a little bit, so if you stay on the right hand side, you do end up getting a bit more track to play with, and Larson knew that and just went for the move. So brilliant stuff, of course. So at the moment we are seeing the praises of Larson, but not of Patience, who definitely was not patient on the throttle coming out of Redgate. That has unsettled the car just a little bit and might promote Lucas Finco up into 7th place. Not quite close enough to really capitalise. Has a bit of a look into the old hairpin, but you're not really on the brakes for long enough. The speed that you carry through the old hairpin is incredible considering how tight of a corner it is, but they run uphill. Maybe Lucas Finco might be able to pounce on any opportunity that comes his way, but the Aston Martin livery Formula 3 machine unfortunately has to stay behind for now, and well, it's all aboard the Patience Express at the moment because you've got Patience, Finco, Dutton and Long all queuing up behind, and well, this is probably going to be a train that's, well, I'm going to predict is not going to dissipate anytime soon, as side by side just in the background.
I love it, as you mentioned, the Patience Express train, brilliant. Welcome along, of course, to casting on the JP Broadcasting Network there with Zachary. He's coming up with all the puns here this evening, as these drivers are coming out with some of the fantastic overtaking and wheel-to-wheel racing that we're liking to see here. There is your Patience train, and there it is. I'm not quite sure how much more patient Ian Patience can be with, well, he's got more of the battle behind him, doesn't he?
Absolutely, and it's continuing on. I think there are a lot of drivers, unfortunately, that we can make puns out of their names for, which is why they're going to hate us by the end of the season. You've got Keane, you've got Rude, you've got Kiko, I think you could probably fit one into. You've then got Patience, Long.
Oh!
And, well, once again, a similar mistake. Actually, don't reverse into the back of the circuit. That was very, very close as he tumbles his way down the order. That is very, very unfortunate for the pair of them. And
yeah.
I mean, it's easy done. It was the same mistake that he made on the previous lap. Maybe with Rude waiting, there was a bit of contact, but I'm not entirely sure. But that was the second lap in a row that we saw Patience get the rear end out through Redgate. what is the challenge then of that corner that is forcing these cars to struggle just a little bit? Because there's not necessarily a massive traction zone.
That's what's what for racing drivers, my friend. I set up in the casting air conditioning box and watch them do that. That's one for the chat, actually. Please let us know. Exactly, answer to Zach's question about what is the challenge there specifically as a driver. You guys know that. You very much have done that before. And maybe we'll see more of that action zone to come further into this race. Of course, no spoiler alerts out there, please. This is the first time that Zach and I are broadcasting and watching this live, so we don't know what's going on. We can see some fantastic racing as they're trying to make their way up. Seth's also very, very close there. I'm back on Mr. Patience. It's made his way back onto the track after a bit of a spinaroo. You can see the liveries, of course. This is the old classic, well, this is the Golf McLaren livery there from Seth. So again, we have an Aston Martin livery out there. We have an old McLaren livery too. Oh, they're all over the place. Brooks is still leading the race there from Carson Keane. And I think Mr. Brian Long will be definitely snapping on the snap-on tools very soon there on the back there of the Aston Martin livery of James Finko.
Absolutely love it. Snap-on obviously do quite a wide...
Expensive tools, mate, but they're really, really good.
They are very expensive. They are really good, and lifetime warranty, I think, as well. If you get them in the right place, potentially that is wide, and well, he might be trying to undo the 6th place of Lucas Finko at the moment. Is there going to be any moves into the Fogarty S's? He's going to have a bit of a look late on the brakes from Brian Long. Beautiful stuff. That's not really a move that you often see because the chicane is quite fast-paced in all fairness, but it is a 90-degree left-hander. There is Ian Rude having an off. This is running his way through. I think this is Coppice onto the back straight. Indeed it is. So unfortunately for Ian Rude getting the rear end just out a little bit, but yeah, fights up and down the field. This is Seth MacFarlane from the back of Ian Patience. Yeah, I was right. I don't think it's the same one that did Family Guy though. I'm gonna say that.
No, it's not. One. It's not, unfortunately. Yeah, Stewie. But yeah, I mean, there's a little story about that. Did you know during the 911 he was booked on that flight? He was booked on the flight out of Boston.
So was what's his name? Mark, the one that did Transformers.
Oh, really?
That one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they cancelled. And you know, lucky for Seth, I mean, and lucky for everybody's Family Guy supporter, of course, and a lover of his work. He wouldn't be here today if he did manage to make that flight. That's that one flight you kind of wish you missed, unfortunately. We won't talk about that, but we will talk about more of the racing. And with the other Seth MacFarlane. Maybe he could be sitting there doing all the voices inside the vehicle and maybe getting past an overtake voice like that going zoom on by. Great exit.
That's definitely one to Yo-Yahtzee at because he's just sailed his way past Ian Patience. We are getting told, obviously, in response to said question about Redgate, low traction once you hit the apex and get on the throttle. So it is super easy to loop the car. No assists when it comes to these Formula 3 machineries. No anti-lock braking system, no traction control system either. And also, as an add-on onto that, and these cars lose tyre performance pretty easily as you're grinding them down all race. Donington is a fairly demanding circuit in the variety of corners, quite some long corners as well, particularly Coppice, and quite demanding corners as well through the Craner curves. The car is on the limit of adhesion and is very easy to just slip out just that little bit. Mokiko as well, adding to that, saying the track is a little bit odd coming into Redgate, and it is quite easy to understeer out. I have experienced that quite a bit. In my racing experience, taking the last second action to avoid understeering can upset the cars. Yeah, absolutely. So as you're going in and you're turning, the front tyre isn't having it. You've got two options. You either try to slide the rear end out to rotate the rear with the front, or you brake and slow the car down to then be able to turn. And either way, you are going to be upsetting the car just that little bit, which could very easily end up in you having an off. This is the fight for the lead at the moment with Brooks and Keane. Both of them have been fluctuating in terms of their pace. Brooks at some point has been able to get ahead of that 1 second mark. Keane has then been able to reel him back in. It's teetering on that edge. It's flirting. The potential is there between these two, but at the moment it's not quite close enough.
But he can see him. That's always the great thing, isn't it? As a racing driver, you want to make sure you can see your opponent. Hunt your prey down, essentially. And it also gives you as an advantage as a driver of spotting where they're making mistakes and errors, perhaps, or where they're actually gaining some time on you. Don't want to be literally. Some drivers do like it there, Zach, like just out there racing by themselves, sticking to a time delta. But kind of like myself and I think other racing drivers like to see the car up the road, see who's battling, and also see the cars behind you and stuff like that, and then get an idea, hey, you know, all right, this is where I need to improve. I can see them, I can see where they're making mistakes. Time for me to pounce. Or not, but it's certainly brewing up, and we'll go back to that in a second because there's still that battle that's brewing here. And there is Brian Long after he's had a bit of a spinner room moment. He's got Dominic up the road. He's in the middle of this party. There it is. There's a three-way battle, as you can see on your timing tower there to the left. If you are new to watching this, goes orange, it means you're getting pretty close. If it's on yellow, you're within about half a second or so, within half a second to a second. And then if you're white, you're over a second. Is that a lift off there? It was from Dominic. Slow down, do you think?
Yellow to white very quickly. I think so. That is the only reasonable explanation as to why he's just pulled over off the race line and allowed them both through. So Long and Dutton both capitalizing on that, but I'm just trying to think as to where he would have got that. Obviously, iRacing does give you sort of 30 seconds to serve your slowdown penalty. Maybe took a bit too much out of McLean's. Maybe through the running wide out of the old hairpin. I don't know. I'm trying to think as to where he would actually have benefited from having off track. But who knows?
Yeah. You know what? I do love this. This is not. You know, we're uniquely doing this live, of course. But what I do love the fact that we can actually have the drivers in for a yarn to us for the first time. Usually the drivers are out there on the track, and they are right now, of course, in a pre-recorded world. Once again, Zach and I do not know what's going on, so we're watching this like it's absolutely live. But we do have the drivers in the chat with us, and it's good to actually have a chat with them, isn't it? Because we can't do that when they're driving.
It's almost like a constant interview throughout the race, because during commentary sometimes we're like, yeah, that's exactly what that guy's thinking. We know exactly what's going on their head. Yeah, absolutely. He's going to sit back and overtake. He's trying to save his tyres and save his fuel. And when we're saying that, we are just completely blagging it. We are like, yeah, we know what we're talking about. It's fine. We're professionals. Absolutely. We know what's going on in the driver's head. We don't. And the only way to really know 100% what's going on in their head, and even then it's a little bit shaky because they could just be feeding us a lot of was. But when they come into the YouTube chat and we can actually ask them, it's like, oh yeah, no, at this point in the race, I wasn't going to do anything. So it's like, okay, sweet, we knew that. Obviously, we can't have any post-race interviews today because that'd be a bit awkward, and we'd be like, so how did your race go today? He's like, mate, I'll be honest, I can't really remember what I had for tea last night, let alone what happened on Saturday evening when we were racing. So yeah, it's a bit awkward. But we can make some good guesses, we can make some good predictions, but with them watching along in the YouTube chat, thank you, of course, to everyone watching along here on the JP Broadcasting YouTube network. It's a pleasure to have you. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn the bell for notifications, etc., all that housekeeping malarkey, because you will find a home at JPB, whether it is Formula 3s, touring cars, radicals, endurances, GT3s, single-seaters. We've got everything, okay? And whether you find a home and stick to it, or you want to branch out and have a feel around, see if you like anything else, you will have it here on the JP Broadcasting Network. My name is Zach Sweeney. I've got Team Biggles alongside me for the Sim Racing for Simpletons Formula 3 Championship here at Donington Park. We have a heavy contingent of drivers, which, as we say, is a very good thing to have, because it's like, yeah, no, look out for the next lap, or we've got a good race in store. They're telling us the truth so far, because so far it's been quite an action-packed race as we approach the third way mark.
As you can also see, the biggest gainers at the moment. So Dutton, they gained 6 positions. A couple of drivers are getting 3 positions. Good to see. Nothing between these two at the moment. Michael Brooks there and Carson Keane. Both are kind of being at it too for now. We're actually showing a little bit. We don't get very often to look at the leaders of a race too much there, Zach, as you know. You usually so much of the other battles going on, but it gives a bit of exposure there for Michael Brooks. And this is also one for, like, you grab your family out there and you go, hey, Mum, look at me. Hey, Dad, look at me. I'm on TV. So you can do that right now. Have them have a look at you, and when they can wonder why you're spending so many hours on the racing simulator over and over again, well, this is the results that you get to show them. Depending on where you are, doesn't really matter. You got 15 drivers in this race, so doesn't matter where you finish. It's how you finish, or if you finish, hopefully. What do you think at the moment Carson can get it done? Now, we do pit stops, of course. Remember, they do have to make pit stops. But what can he do? It seems that every time Carson's charging, it seems that Michael Brooks has an answer.
I mean, that's exactly what Brooks is doing at the moment. Again, I say that very lightly because I don't know what he's doing. But what I can imply that he's doing right now is maintaining the gap, sustaining it. He's not pushing too hard as to grow the gap and get out completely, 3, 4, 5 seconds ahead, all that's going to do is destroy his tyres. And by the end of the race, or by the pit stop time, I think, well, it depends. You lose about 4 seconds changing tyres. He might want to, but if those tyres are going to go to the end, he doesn't want to shoot them by trying to unnecessarily drive away from Carson Keane, because when they hit the cliff, he's going to drop off and that gap's going to close. Right now, at 1.5 seconds, he's not really under any pressure from Carson Keane. He's more just there at an arm's length. Yes, he's in the rearview mirror. Yes, it's a bit of pressure, but it's not like he's close enough to really send a move or do anything audacious. Carson Keane's too far back, and he's not close enough to really go for anything. So for Brooks, it's just a case of, well, he's there, might as well just match exactly what he's doing and not let him get any closer. Because as soon as it gets under the threshold of sort of a second, 9 tenths, 8 tenths, that is when Keane is going to get into a bit of trouble. So if Brooks can take care of his tyres, save a bit of fuel to make his pit stop shorter, he might well be able to just, again, sustain that gap and not really have to push his tyres too hard, which I think is what he's doing. But of course, that is a very big guesstimate. There is, though, you don't need to guess as to what's happened there. He's gotten on the power too soon out of McLaren's. He's dipped onto the grass and he's had a bit of a spin. Obviously, we can't confirm with replays, but you're not going to win a jackpot by putting your money as to that's what happened.
Yeah, unfortunately for Brian, just another moment here, isn't it? It's still down to 4 positions. He had one earlier in the race. We're not quite sure if that was a actual contact, because there's a few cars around. That was way back in lap 1. So he's just behind this man who's been behind Mr. Dutton for some time here, and trying their best as well. So I'll get rid of those position gainers and losers, but I will show you the pit stops that people have made now. And according to those pit stops, of course, is that I think we only have just a handful of drivers had to take those pit stops earlier for some damage and went off. Now there you go. So Brian's gone in. So that might be a wise decision at this point. Just going, all right, let's see what he will do down the pit road. And this is very unusual though, Zachary. This is something you won't get very often in the actual live broadcast. This is the Lollipop Man. We don't get to see them.
We don't. I've honestly never picked up on it as to we can't actually see the Lollipop Man, but we can.
I think we can because Brian's the one that's shared us this file.
That's true.
And so because it's Brian's Lollipop Man who's still there, so that's actually fantastic. I've never seen that before, and that's what the drivers will see. Of course, the drivers out there will see the Lollipop Man. We don't. We just see them pull up on their box and wonder sometimes why they go to overshoot their box or not.
Which is very easy to do, in all fairness.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those trivial things that you wouldn't really give a second thought. You wouldn't necessarily practice it. You'd focus your practice on the race, but it is a very easy thing to do. So too is speeding in the pit lane, just braking a bit too late, locking up the fronts, not getting the car slowed down enough, and boom, you've got yourself with a penalty. Not only that, but also you've going into the pit box. Obviously, while overshooting it, you can readjust and get yourself back into position. You're not going to get a penalty for missing your lollipop bound. The penalty that you do get is not a regulatory one. It's the sense that, my word, that's late from Ian Rood. He's skating through. Eventually, the car gives in to way too much slip angle on the rear end. He finds himself spun at the Melbourne hairpin, and that is, again, a very easy mistake to make. Just far too eager on the brakes, similar to missing your pit box and losing a good few seconds in the pit lane. But Ian Rood, that was remarkably late. Honestly, there was no doubt in my mind that he was going to spin, because when you're that late on the brakes and you're trying to turn the car as well, it's literally, the car is just hands up in the air and it's just like, absolutely not. What are you trying to get me to do here, mate?
Dominic also might have had a little bit of a moment there during that. Once again, we can't go back on the replay, but I'm just wondering what would have happened there. So that will actually give that position back to Brian, who did say in the chat there, he said actually there was no contact for that first lap incident or something. He said it was just his own flawless driving. What's flawless driving, is it? Quite sure flawless driving means. Still, the gap is about flawless 1 second.
Lap one.
Flawless what, sorry?
Flawless lap one for
flawless
Brian
lap one.
We won't talk about that. It's a good thing we don't have replays, otherwise we would have milked it for as long as possible. We'd just be like, yeah, so let's take a look at the lap one from Brian Long, even if it's completely irrelevant, just to know. But unfortunately we can't, so lucky you. He's probably
Brian said, obviously, because Brian must either be happy or not happy with the race results at the moment, or currently in P12, because he's still elected to call, and running a league as well. I mean, it's kind of have to commit to that one, don't you? But And sometimes he's probably going, well, do I really want to send this replay file? Is this something I want to show people how my racing went? It's already done and
Because he was
dusted.
put in a bit of a position. Because it was like, the power's now in my hands. It's like, I've already paid this company to come and do the broadcast. I can't not tell them to show up just because I know my race is going to be bad. But this week it was like, you know what, I can just say, oh, whoops, I accidentally slipped. As well, Ian Rude once again having a bit of a rude awakening in terms of his day here in Donington Park. It's not been the day for him at all. He pulls his way into the pit lane, and unfortunately he would have wished that he had control over this replay file, because I'm sure if it was in his hands, he'd have been like, whoops, it is his lollipop man. I'm sure he would have been like, whoops, it's not his longs. Oh, well, that's a shame.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Sure would have just been like, yeah, no, whoops, button slipped, accidentally deleted it, sorry guys, no commentary this week. But obviously Long is committed to the bit, which we respect.
But I tell you what's really interesting, Zach. What's really interesting, I've been noticing it, I've caught in my eye, and it's not something that generally, you know, we broadcast and we cast a lot of races and a lot of leagues and stuff like that for the JP Broadcasting Network, is my mouse keeps flashing red every once in a while. And I'm always wondering, I know it does that at the start of a race. If it's green, it will flash red if it's like a, you know, yellow or yellows if it's caution car or something like that in some of the leagues. But in this one, it's been flashing red every time somebody has an incident. So that's what I kind of know in the corner of my eye, and then look for what's happened to a driver. Yeah, I've never seen that before. Just a replay thing.
That up?
Yeah, it does. The mouse just does it automatically. I let it do its own thing. Okay, it has a mind of its own.
Just reminds me of when you play GTA and your controller flashes the different lights, like when you've got the police and it flashes red and blue.
Yeah, probably like that. There you go.
Yeah. But it's, I don't know. I'd like that, because it'd be like, oh yeah, my mouse is flashing red. When mine flashes red, I'm in trouble because it's low on battery and it's a wireless mouse. So I'm like, I need to charge it. Fun. But no, yours is like, oh, this driver's had enough. You can look at it just by looking at your mouse.
Yeah.
You should do a commentary purely because of your mouse. You should just look at it and commentate your mouse.
It just went some crazy color as well too. I'd even seen that before, but anyway. Oh, that's because it was a pass. Oh, now I don't even realize why it does that. I think they're all passing Ian because Ian's in the pit lane. That's what that reason is. Thank you very much for that, mouse.
The more you know. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Dean Biggles. See, replays are good for some things.
Yeah, that's true.
Both allowing us to broadcast the race as we approach the halfway mark. Actually, over the halfway mark now is Dutton is into the pit lane. I don't necessarily know if he's going to rejoin the race. I'm convinced that that's Luxembourg. It's not that I don't know. I need him to confirm it for me, because I think that's Luxembourg. Either that or the pun in his team name is because he's clicked the wrong flag. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I wanted to confirm, because my geography knowledge would take a massive hit if that was the case. He rejoins just in behind Brian Long, does Joel Dutton. So obviously on one stop, the bottom 5 drivers, Curto, Long, Dutton, Payne and Matheson. None of the rest of the field have come into the pit lane, so they're stretching their stint as long as possible. I think we spoke about how demanding this track is in terms of tyre wear. Maybe the simplest thing to do is just to do half and half, so much so that you aren't destroying the tyres. I don't know. We're making these assumptions. We're talking about the strategy as if we know what we're talking about. The good thing is we've got the drivers in the chat, so they can sort of fill us in as to what they're thinking in terms of what the strategy is. So if you are watching along, don't hesitate just to, you know, give us a bit of a nudge. Don't tell us exactly, just give us a bit of a nudge. As Kiko setting a green lap at 21.574. So continuing to go quicker, which is interesting considering we're so far into the race. You'd think that those tyres didn't really have much left in them.
That's the reason why we'd like to know that information. Is Brian's come back out after making his pit stops. You can see that on the right hand side. So there's pit stops from everybody from P10 down. And the question, of course, that will be still remaining on a lot of our heads there, but probably not necessarily the people out there in the chat, because they're well aware of when they made their pit stops, unless their friends and family, of course, are watching it. They might not know. We don't know whether or not Carson Keen's going to follow Michael Brooks in or try an overcut or an undercut. So we're just over halfway through the race. I think Brian's had a moment again, my friend, and yes, he has. Just that's why I took the camera away from you, Brian. I didn't want to try and jinx it. And speaking of which, Michael's gone in. I could have flipped that around. That would have worked perfectly for the camera work that I did then. Showed Brian first and then showing Michael go in anyway.
Well, the split decision in terms of pit strategy then between our two race leaders. Carson Keen going slightly longer than Michael Brooks, who rejoins the circuit now. He didn't go up into the jacks, which tells me he didn't take tyres, just a dash of fuel, and out he goes. Now the race is on to utilize this undercut to try and get his way back past Carson Keane. We'll wait and see as to what Keane does, because right now he's got clear track ahead of him. He's not really visualizing Michael Brooks at the moment. He's just driving his own race. This probably needs to be the most important lap or couple laps, however long's left until he comes into the pit lane of his race, because this is the turning point when you get to the pit stop phase.
Yeah, we're going to keep his eye on his helmet, see if we get any indication for his facial expressions, what he's going to do, but we're right on board. I love that section. Flies through there. You can run over those, what do you call them, pylons, kind of plastic pylon things, but they'll just reappear and pop back up. But you don't do that too many times, you get an off-track excursion. So Seth goes in, Ian's gone in as well. We're just going to keep an eye on King, because I got a feeling if I switch his camera away, we're going to miss him going to a pit stop soon. We'll see how that's going to pan out. Yep, he's gone in. Look, I knew it. I had that sneaking suspicion here. Now, it's going to be interesting to see, where is Michael?
Race against time between the pair of them. Is he?
Well, that's bumpy, isn't it?
Poor lollipop man is what I'm thinking about. Poor suspension of the Africa, and then poor Gary is what we're going to call him. He's just got completely run over. Poor dude. That was a shame. Unfortunate. There's Michael Brooks though coming across the start-finish straight. There is Shane Larson. Carson Keane would already be out. He is out and ahead of Michael Brooks, so has taken the effective race lead. The gap less than, well, hovering about half a second, must be said, less than a second, which Carson Keane has really done a worldie in terms of his pit strategy. He's got to get them tyres back up to temperature now, but this is now Keane's race, his race to control. Michael Brooks, he controlled the first stint, but now he's actually got to do a bit of hard work. He's got to work his way back through on Keane, and if he wants to have any chance of winning this race.
He's got the temperature up in the tyres, remember, too. That's the thing. This is going to get spicy and dicey. As you can see, there's multiple battles brewing there as well, too. But that's only because Shane's catching Kiko that as to box. Kiko was in the chat before with us, but he said he has to go do another league race, so he won't be able to watch the end of this, but he already knows.
He does indeed, and that's a good run from Michael Brooks. Looking to the outside of the Melbourne hairpin. Carson Keane saw it coming and goes defensive late on the brakes. Bit of a discouragement from Carson Keane versus Michael Brooks, who does get the drive off Melbourne. And is there any space in towards Goddard? You can be quite late on the brakes, but he is just going to follow single file. Very twitchy is that 83 machine, I'm noticing. He is having to take a couple of good goes at the steering wheel to get it turned in there, whereas Keane is quite smooth with it. One single transition, not really making many mistakes. They both now re-inherit the top two places in this race. Let's not forget Shane Larson isn't too far back either, about 2.5 seconds. There's wide from Carson Keane as well. Michael Brooks is going to be hoping that he can close the gap. He's got a bit of a look to the inside of the final part of the crane of curves. He's done exactly that. Has Carson Keane got the measure into the old hairpin? No, he hasn't. And all of that hard work, unfortunately for the Canadian, he's got to do it all over again, but this time without a pit stop to help.
Good racing. Absolutely great racing. I think we're gonna see this to the end. So Kiko did get his pit stop done. He's come back out in P5. All the pit stops are done, as you can see on your screens. So the mandatory one is, that's it. Tick that off your box. You don't have to do that again, but we kind of have a sneaking suspicion that some of the drivers might be doing a pit stop, 2 pit stops. Some of the drivers might end up doing a 1. We didn't see tyres get taken, did we? On many of the drivers. Brian's gone back in pit road again. We don't get to see this very often, but we're going to see Brian hit his lollipop man.
It's true.
No, he missed him. It's a drive-through.
I think what we saw last week was a bit of an error in terms of when the drive-throughs were dished out. It's usually 14, 19, and 20. So you get your first drive-through at 14, your second at 19, and then a disqualification at 20. Whether that's been shifted for this week to be the actual correct amount, I'm not sure. But with the amount that we've seen spin and crash and make contact and lose control, most importantly, for those that aren't aware, the way iRacing works is you get 1 incident point, 1 X for going off track. You get 2 X's for losing control. You get 4 X's for contact that's deemed substantial enough, and that's sideways from Brian Long. Fortunately, able to keep control of it enough to not pirouette all the way around. So he's managed to reduce his incident points in that regard. But basically, for those who are new to iRacing, you get 1, 2, and 4 X's. And when we talk about incident points, those are the X's. Those are what we're talking about. When you get 14, it's a drive-through. When you then get 5 more to get to 19, it's another one. An extra one on top of that is your final chance, and that's going to be a 2x for Joel Dutton for losing control, and that's going to be an extra tally to his drive-through. And we are getting confirmation that if it is a 2-stop, it is 100% an incident point penalty, and also confirmation that they are now correct. So go me.
Well, thank you very much for that. The sim racing for simpletons out there is the man that's behind that chat is Brian. He did warn us, didn't he? But Brian, I tell you one thing you are bringing us here this evening is entertainment on the track all the time.
Didn't know we were watching ballet, but to each their own. What was some referees, not Disney on Ice. But...
Ian's had an off-track excursion. Ooh, that was a big twitch moment there from Carlson King.
It was. The pressure is on, in all fairness, for the Canadian, because obviously he did the hard work through the pit stops of overtaking. Unfortunately, it was a bit of a mistake through Redgate that saw Brooks just commit and go for the move and get himself back in. Maybe we are starting to see the pressure in the cracks creep through, so much so that maybe we could see Keane, unfortunately, not take the top spot in this race. Who knows? We will find out in about 10 laps' time as to what the situation is going to be. But there is a swap. Michael Brooks has had an off somewhere. He's made a mistake and he's lost 1.5 seconds. He's lost the lead and potentially even second place as well as by Stober last in this contact.
Yes, just like that, off-track excursion, and then all of a sudden P2's not up for grabs. You're worried about holding on to P2. P3 is now. Just like that. Can't show you the replay of an off-track, but you were aware, you saw that. It just, until a snap of an oversteer or something happened. A little bit twirly-whirly, loosey-goosey, as they say sometimes. Now he's going to have to think about Larson. This is going to give Mr. Carlson King, of course, a little bit of a smile on his helmet, knowing, okay, I've got a little bit of a breather for now, but wow. Just like that, isn't it? I'm going to go back to Brian, because Brian's just loving the camera was here for the Snap-on Racing team on Ian, because Ian had a moment. That's the reason why he's back in play. Ian had an off-track excursion, and this driving around the outside there is going to be tight. Oh, sneaks it in. Great job there, Brian. Well, you might say you had the best of races, but I tell you what, it's certainly been entertaining. And there's Kurto just slicing up on the back there of Ian Patience, who definitely had that off-track moment. Hurt his spirit a little bit. Got to get that temperature back into those tyres and get back into the loud paddle.
I mean, yeah, with Long, it was a good move. It has been a tough race. There's a twitch from Patience as well, but it has been a decent race, as much as he wouldn't admit to it. There's Nicholas Curto and Ian Patience side by side as well on the run in towards Goddard's. The 46 machine is going to have to back out just a little bit or take an ungodly wide line to get the traction out of Goddard's and have the run through the pit straight in towards Redgate corner. Is the slipstream powerful enough? It's not really a long enough straight here at Donington, but he is still sat behind and still quite close. But yeah, it's a fantastic job from everyone involved, really, in all fairness. It is a tough circuit, and obviously noting that it is Ian Patience's first ever league race. So, considering all things considered, I don't think Ian Patience has done too bad in terms of a couple of rough edges and a good little couple of battles actually with the Belgian of Nicholas Curto, who tries to have a bit of a look to the inside of McLean's. But his pace has been there, and he's, got a little bit argy-bargy with some of the drivers. Unfortunately, made a couple of mistakes, but I think that's more inexperience than a lack of ability, as Angelico, unfortunately, no excuse there, a little bit wide out of Coppice, and that unfortunately has dropped him outside the top 10.
Catching, that's cutting the corner a little bit there, Nicholas. Swat chicane, he says. Straight over it. Boom. Don't want to get too many of those, as we were spoken about before in the chat there. Just seeing at the moment there, Larson might have made another little mistake because he's dropped back to almost 3 seconds behind Brooks now, and Carlson Keen's looking pretty strong out front there with about a 4-second gap. But judging by what has been happening with some of these drivers this evening, I wouldn't say you're immune to Donington Park. There you go, I said it probably for the second time here this evening there, Zach. I think you're up to about 26 times you said it now. I think it's one of Zach's favourite tracks.
Keeping a live count, are you, of how many times I said Donington?
No, unfortunately, I'm pressing too many buttons at the moment, but I should.
I mean, it's a good track, right? You can't blame me for saying that. I know Kiko said that he doesn't like it last week, which is blasphemy. You can't say that you don't like it and be running in 5th place as well. But that's besides the point. I don't know. I like Donington. I like most of the tracks in the UK. In all fairness, you know, Brands, Snetterton, particularly Snetterton because near me, Silverstone, Knock Hill. They're all brilliant circuits, and they all have their own little quirks and things. So just to take some Formula 3 machinery here to Donington is good. Obviously, it did host the Formula 1 Grand Prix back in the olden days, but that's definitely not a feasible option as of now.
I'm just trying to remember what year that was because
Senna's drives, he did a really good first lap here. I think it was from like 7th to 1st in the wet or something like that. I don't know, but they definitely did come to Donington. They've sort of alternated, I think, between Donny, Brands and Silverstone. So
I like Brands more for the blind hill corner, the blind corners.
Oh yeah,
the old Brands he has. That's one for you there, Zach. It'll test your F1 knowledge while there's a little bit of a breather, a bit of a gap between the gladiators on the track. I spoke to Susan about that one because Brian is now starting to catch the back there, but we'll still speak about that. Larson puts the fastest lap in, so he is not over yet. Some fireworks are going off in the background. A little bit too early out there for whoever's the fireworks pyrotechnics person, because you got to wait about 7 more laps first, guys, and then you can launch the fireworks.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Brian had a moment. I think that's the reason why.
Oh, your mouse being the fireworks. Yeah, obviously. Sorry. It took me a second.
But yeah, there's one for you. How many tracks in the United Kingdom has Formula 1 been on then? That's one for the chat too.
Do you know?
Do I know? No, I don't, unfortunately. Not that much.
I thought it was one of those trivia things that you know. I'm trying to think. Obviously, Silverstone, Brands, and Donington. Whether they've gone to... I don't think they've gone to Snetterton. I'm thinking the only other one that's really feasible might be Alton Park, maybe all the way back in the day. I'm going to go with 3 in terms of Silverstone, Donington, and Brands.
It's got to be up. There's another one here. It's in my mind. I wonder if anybody can help us out in the chat. I know for a fact there's got to be another one there. I think we're skipping a classic one, maybe.
I'm just trying to go through the list of major UK tracks that in my head. So you've got Brands, Snetterton, Donington, Silverstone, Alton Park, Cadwell. Then you've got the one in Scotland, Knock Hill. You've then got Thruxton and Croft. Have you got any... No, none in Northern Ireland, none in Wales. They've not done anything in Wales. They've definitely not done anything in Knock Hill, surely. I just can't see any other track being even remotely feasible for a Formula 1 car, even sort of the classic ones. Maybe, was there a street track somewhere? Did London ever do something? I know there was plans for it, but I don't think there was ever ones. I'm going to have to Google it now, or we're going to wait for them to Google it in the YouTube chat and tell us.
There's a driver that I used to cast a Formula 1 with, and he knows, he's like a walking Wikipedia. I've had him one time to repeat all the drivers, all the world champions from now backwards to the very first one, so he can do all that. He can tell you any of the teams that won on what years and everything. And he's only a young bloke too, mate. Just a little bit older than you, but not bad. Not bad for that kind of knowledge of Formula 1. That's for sure. He'll tell you. I picked his brain multiple times, and he always delivers. Not very often he doesn't make a mistake. Shane is really, really pushing right now. You saw he's got the fastest lap. He's at 1.8 seconds, so he's doing everything he knows. Look, I'm getting down to just under 5 laps to go. Got to give it everything he can to try to possibly, well, for one, get a catch Michael. Another thing, you got to overtake him.
It is. I mean, the famous Royal Walker obviously said it's one thing to catch, it's another thing to pass. Just to add on to that, it's another thing to pull away and keep the position that you just gained. But Shane Larson is closing the gap. Unfortunately for him, though, time is anything but on his side. He really has to push in the final few moments and really hope for a mistake from Michael Brooks, who, after his off-track incident, his tyres might be a little bit worse for wear, but same too could be the case for Shane Larson in the sense that he has been pushing pretty much since the start of the race. So we'll wait and see as to what happens in that regard, but the gap isn't massive, but it is a gap that's going to have to close and be surpassed in the span of the final 10% of this race, which is a task that not many really can achieve. And small little mistakes like that, you might not even really have noticed what he done. He just turned in turned out very slightly and missed the apex, and then obviously the more obvious one on the exit where he went sideways. But small things like that really do add up, and now the gap is back over 2 seconds, which is more than the gap between Keane and Brooks. So I have to say, I'm not really convinced that Larson's going to get himself into second place, particularly with Brooks still setting personal fastest laps.
And Joel just got past Sefia in that overtake just before. So there's the wrong stuff blue. That is a Dutch flag, isn't it? We'll be determining that one or not. But,
Luxembourg. No, it's Luxembourg.
That's Luxembourg. Okay. Well, we're still debating that one. Either way, Shane, we'll go on board for Shane for a little bit. Well, I keep hitting the oops, we're not supposed to show that. Drivers don't like us looking underneath the car. It's a little rude. Seeing all their aerodynamics performances, giving away secrets for the teams. Yes, and now Mr. Zachary, the man that will be winning all the commentators awards no doubt in the future and replacing the old school casters like myself and James. And thank you everybody too. We got the 1K marker. We know what happens now that James has to do us a food cast there and he goes on his holiday in Spain, so I'll be looking forward to that one. Make sure you tune in to the JP Broadcasting to see James doing a food review for us. Oh, see that again from Shane.
Yeah, he's getting close, and now the gap is only 1.3 seconds, so it still might be on, in all fairness, particularly seeing as he's just closed the second on that last lap alone. So I think it is sort of swings and roundabouts. It's like a pendulum between the pair of them. One is going quick while the other's going slow, then the other's going slow while the other's going quick. But is this time enough for Shane Larson just to creep into that 1 second bracket and just try and reel him in bit by bit? Obviously no DRS in these cars, so being under the 1 second mark doesn't really mean anything other than just being that little bit closer. But from a mental standpoint for Larson, just being closer and being closer to his rival, seeing him get larger in his vision, might well give him that motivation in order to drive onto the back of him and still give us a decent finale to this race. Because the top three separated by just over 3 seconds definitely isn't bad. But the unfortunate thing is they've got the gap, but none of them are really significantly quicker than the other in order to actively close the gap enough. However, the gap between Brooks and Keane is closing, the gap between Larson and Brooks is closing. If this race was just that little bit longer, I could still see a three-way fight for the lead. Unfortunately, we're now heading on to the penultimate lap.
And there it is as well too, so to get those sector times maybe for the top three. No, we're not going to work for the top three, but it'll work for these two. He's pushing it. He's absolutely giving this thing to the limit.
He's given it everything, isn't it? He's trying to push his foot more into the footwell. He can't get his right foot further down than he currently is. So he's throwing everything at these final 2 laps, and he knows that time is not on his side. The gap is now under half a second. The timing tower goes orange. That's when you know it's in the danger zone. The car's getting to tow range when you get under a second.
Oh, this is it.
He's wide, and that's easy. Shane Larson doesn't really have to do much hard work. Dirty tyres and a very wide line from Michael Brooks promotes the American up into second place. So Michael Brooks, from pole to controlling the first stint, is now towards the back end of the podium in the final moments of the race. Huge move there from Larson. Put Brooks under a bit of pressure. And unfortunately, it crumbled. He didn't quite have the guts really to hold it. He's late. Oh my word. How has he gone for that? He gets given the space as well. Shane Larson on the outside. There's contact. They come together. They continue to go together. They're locked. Wow. That is...
Oh, and it's crabbing as well to the cars. Now, what would you do here?
Not that. I would not do that.
Not happy campers right now on this one. Race control.
Which means Whitfield's going to get into second place.
Yes. Dan will. And what else? What about Kiko? How far's back's Kiko? Shane's gone back to pit road because he can't drive that car. It's all dinged up. What about Michael?
Struggling.
Yep. Is this enough time, do you think, from Kiko to come here? Through here?
Oh, I mean...
He's passing the pit road now.
Larson easy.
It's, penultimate lap. So Barney's waved the white flag. Shane's actually come out of pit road, so he might just be able to clear Kiko.
Yeah,
but that's the thing, too, about Michael. What about that with the damage that he has? Can he still keep it pointing? Yeah, I'm sure at the moment we had Brian out there in the chat. He's well aware of this. He's probably had to deal with all the stewarding reports and stuff like that that have been filed after this race, which you can probably tell us in a minute or very soon, mate, how that did pan out after these race results. Because once again, we don't know. We're watching this like it's live for us for the first time.
We are indeed. It's fantastic stuff. And into the final couple of corners, actually, for Carson Keane. He's got a tenth of the lap left to go. There he is through the final corner. It's not been the cleanest of runs from the Canadian, but he crosses the line first. He sees the checkered flag first. He weaves his way to take victory here in Donington Park for round number 2 of the Sim Racing for Simpletons Formula 3 Championship. From the front row to victory, the Canadian takes his first of the season. Daniel Whitfield, after a late contact between Michael Brooks and Shane Larson, sees himself take second place, with Michael Brooks, unfortunately, to the back end of the podium. There is Shane Larson fighting with Kiko into the final couple of corners. And the final corner exactly, has Larson got enough just to hang on, I think. The car was a little bit shaken. Kiko gave it everything, but unfortunately it wasn't enough to promote themselves up ahead of Larson for 4th place. I have to say, considering this was a replay, it did not disappoint.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Here's Lucas Finco, just earlier in the action and then quietly during the rest of the race, which sometimes you just want to have a nice quiet race. It's across the line about 20 seconds to change down the road there. And there's Dinton. Another quieter race for the old school McLaren livery. There, just behind him, there was a bit of a battle there brewing between Long and Curto. Oh, actually, what's happened here? Brian, we knew you had a bad... That's the last corner of the last lap of the race there, Brian. And loses that place out, unfortunately. He did say he didn't have a very good race. And just a spin towards the final corner proves that one. About Msef across the line, that's it, actually. Yes, exactly. So, wow, controversy between those drivers at the end. But nothing that Carson Keane needs to worry about because he gets the race win. Those results we could probably show you, actually, now because we don't have to wait for it. So, see if we can pull them up. There you go.
There we go. Well, Carson Keane takes victory here today. Daniel Whitfield and Michael Brooks join him on the podium with Shane Larson and Modelise Kiko, your top 5. Lucas Finco takes 6th with Joel Dutton and Brian Long just in behind. Then comes Seth MacFarlane and Nicholas Curto, your top 10. Dominic Angelico on the fringes of that, a lap down as well. Unfortunately, Boyd Payne, Ian Patience on his debut in terms of league racing. Not a bad result. The potential is there. It'll be interesting to see his ascend through the order throughout the rest of the season. Carl Matheson and Ian Rood, your 15-car strong field. Ian Rood giving up about halfway through the race. Unfortunately, not the best day for the Canadian. But Dean, I have to say, that really was a good race. From start to finish, we had something to keep us on our toes.
Well, it's the track that you said, isn't it? Donington Park produces, and it has produced another fantastic race for round 2. I had to apologise about the fact that we weren't doing this live, but we were live at the entertainment. We were entertained as everybody else. We'll get you all the final standings and all those results and stuff like that properly next week for round 3. And it has been confirmed out there that they are teammates, so no protesters, and they're handing it amongst themselves in that incident that we saw. So if you'd like to wrap this one up, Zachary, and we'll let everybody have a little bit of a lay down.
Absolutely. Well, I think they deserve one after Donington. Obviously, they've had the whole weekend and a bank holiday weekend as well. Well, particularly for those in UK. I don't know really know how it works over the sea, but who knows? But yeah, they've had the weekend to cool down, and well, looking forward to this Saturday. We don't have to wait a whole week to get back here for some Formula 3 action. We go to Road Atlanta on May the 6th. Of course, here in the UK, it'll be 8 p.m. BST. For those across the Atlantic, it'll be 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Eastern Standard Time, of course. So make sure you are tuning in here on the JP Broadcasting YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, turn the bell on for notifications to not miss a thing that comes your way in terms of sim racing. My name has been Zach Sweeney, Dean Biggles alongside me in the commentary booth. And while today was some weird circumstances, I think it played out quite well in the end, it must be said. However, we look forward to Road Atlanta, the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve, after that Circuit of the Americas, Zandvoort, Laguna Seca, and Silverstone to round off the season on June 10th. Well, we look forward to seeing you soon. But in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, take care and a very warm bye-bye.